Welcome to the Leadership Labs with rethink.ai, a podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of deep tech entrepreneurship, company founders and venture capitalists. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and I'm thrilled to have you join us in this exciting journey. In each episode, we explore the minds behind groundbreaking technologies, the visionaries who dare to push the boundaries of innovation, and the investors who fuel the growth of tomorrow's game changers. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Leadership Labs podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and today's guest is Alexander Leiter. Alexander is the founder at Skillfill.ai, and in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about his previous history, what got him into entrepreneurships, and then I guess really focusing on the client who you're actually selling the product to, and then how to translate those business demands into tech. But before we get into all that, Alex, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Like where I want to go, but back to a little bit with every guest that I have so far. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What sort of has got you on the path to entrepreneurship?
That's interesting. So I do have this background of business administration and engineering. So I was kind of always in between those two worlds, and even when I was studying, I was super interested in entrepreneurship. I had 1 year that I spent at Imperial College, which is a very kind of entrepreneurial heavy university. And this is also, for example, where I got the chance to meet some very impressive entrepreneurs. This is for the first time when I kind of have this feeling like, okay, because Germany is very kind of industry heavy, and you go for corporate careers normally, let's say. This was for me like the first time where I realized, okay, actually, there is a career path out there, which you can be an entrepreneur. Those people are not too different. And the background definitely helped me, kind of being between business administration and engineering. Now helps me also a lot to kind of speak both languages and being kind of this piece that can translate technical stuff into the business side. So that's my background. So I did engineering, actually mechanical engineering. Generally, I do think engineering is great in terms of you learn how to solve problems, and in the end, you just need to find the problems that you're super obsessed about, and you go for it and you solve them. And you will never do anything yourself anyway. So I'm more of a generalist, and I found it completely fine. So I don't have a computer science background, but So with this in mind, after university, I started working directly with the co-founders of a VC-backed startup. Back then, they were in Stuttgart in the south of Germany. Now they're also in Berlin. I still know them very well. So it was a very good time to really experience entrepreneurship, not just, in this academic background and just kind of talking about it and having a discussion here and there with an entrepreneur, but really kind of experiencing it yourself. And the cool thing is, if you work directly with the co-founders, you don't have this extreme responsibility. You're not carrying the company in a sense, but you do see a lot like what's happening in very detail. And that helped me a lot to understand what entrepreneurship is about, and especially this very first phase of getting from zero to first clients, which is very tough, and it's very different compared to corporate life, and that helped me a lot. But on the other hand, I also felt like, okay, I also kind of want to have like a certain expertise. I want to build up my expertise there, and I need people around me who are specialists, who are world-class people, and I can learn from them. And this is when I decided to start a career as a data analyst. I then started working for Criteo, which is a company in the online marketing space, focused on retargeting, to be more precise. That helped a lot in the sense that it's a leading tech company. There is hardly any company that has more data. So if you want to be a data analyst and you want to learn how to use or make use of data, that's a very good place to be. And I was all of a sudden surrounded by computer scientists mainly. And that also helped me a lot to kind of gain technical skills there, and that was just a great kind of career start after the first entrepreneurship experience there. But I also quickly realized that I'm not passionate enough about the problem or the industry. And then I moved on to work for LinkedIn. That was in Ireland, back then in Dublin. Yeah. So and HR tech, this is just my home now for a couple of years, so roughly 5, 6 years now. And I love it. I love it. I think this is like really the industry where you're always kind of connected to people. You do something really good. Like it always, for me, it always feels very good if I see that with my work, I can help people finding the right job. And yeah, just interacting with everyone involved there. Like it can be candidates, but also recruiters, also hiring managers. I really love this space. And yeah, well, LinkedIn helped me a lot to kind of get a good understanding of the market challenges, what's happening out in the market, what is it that the
Yeah.
market needs, where people are struggling, especially the HR departments. There are, of course, some struggles and some things that we can solve. So I think that's kind of how I kind of got all this kind of knowledge around data, around entrepreneurship and HR tech, and then it came all together. And yeah, it was time to found my own company
Now,
and go back to
can I
entrepreneurship.
just can I just say, I just want to go. So you've worked your first company out of university. You're the first employee. You get a lot of great exposure. You get to work on multiple different projects, different challenges all at once. To then become a little bit more working with enterprise businesses, you can get very comfortable, right? But it didn't. You didn't go down the comfort road. You then
Ah,
flipped into Skillfill, a startup. So I guess what made you decide? And I know you mentioned pulling all the skills together is obviously one, right? All the experience, but you could have put all the skills together and stayed in LinkedIn. So why put
I,
all the skills together and start Skillfill?
Yeah, I could have done that. Like honestly speaking, it's great places to work. LinkedIn and Criteo, I both loved it. I can highly recommend if you really want to learn, if you're passionate about what they're doing, and if you want to be surrounded by super nice people and very skilled people, that's really great places to be.
Look, talk to me then, Alex, about the ideation of Skillfill. Quite look, I'm in this space, right? I totally agree. CVs don't work, pre-screening doesn't work. Some of the easy examples, sales and marketing, some of the best salespeople and marketing people do a really poor job at selling and marketing themselves. It's just how it is, right? So, um, look, yeah, the idea, when did you go, right, we want to assess people on skills and then what you want to do, how you want to do it?
Yeah, so in the end, it really goes down to kind of also my own experience there, and I think I've been on both sides. So just to kind of give you a bit of an explanation here, I do have a migration background. I come from a workers' class family. That was it wasn't really kind of the normal way to go study. I was one of the first, maybe even the first in the entire family who went studying there. And you experience things like you feel that you don't really belong, and there are situations also in the hiring processes where you feel like, okay, there is certainly a bias. So if the country where you're born is different from where you kind of apply, that already creates some sort of tension, and some people just put emphasis on it, and it does create a bias. I think there are more than enough studies, and that's something that I experienced myself as well. And at least enough, or to some extent, that I understand that there is a bias. So it made me aware of, okay, there is a high and strong bias often in hiring processes. So that's one thing. That's kind of the negative side there. And then when I kind of went through, like I went to good universities, had a good career, and then now I'm at a point where people are like, "Oh, you worked for LinkedIn. That's great. You've been a data analyst. Oh, you have a data engineer. Oh, you have an engineering background in business administration at good universities and so on." So now it kind of turned, like it's just different. People perceive you in a different way, and I would say neither one is good nor the other is good. I think like I am who I am. I have my skills, and I would have the same skills whether on my CV it's written that I worked for LinkedIn or not. I could have also just kind of stayed in Germany and probably work for a company that is less known. That wouldn't make me worse as a data analyst, right? So I do think that there is no room for bias, or there shouldn't be any space for bias there. And it's too much of an important task for recruiters to match people with the right opportunity. Where I feel as long as we keep focusing on CVs, and think that this is pretty much the truth, and something that really triggers me often, that, and I meet a lot of people, unfortunately, that say, hey, I'm looking at the CV and within a few seconds I know who the person is. I think that's just wrong. It's just not possible. Like, I would love to give a chance to a person. Sometimes people are good at selling themselves. Now, if we look at the situation with ChatGPT, I mean, come on, like, now literally everyone can just spice up their CV, and some people, if you want to invent some stuff, you can invent it and just put it on your CV as well. It will look better. It might increase the chances to get into the interviews, maybe even to get the job. But I do think that this is just very important to kind of give everyone a fair chance there, and not have a bias. And I do think that this is something that needs to change in the industry. I'm not saying that CVs are useless per se. I do think they hold some value. It's a chance also for people to present yourself. So some people who are more humble, they will probably not oversell a lot. Some people who are less humble, they will probably oversell a lot. So you kind of get a lot of personality already. So there is, of course, some things that you can interpret from it, and you can have a first understanding of the person. But I would never base a decision on a CV, and definitely have way more, let's say, information and data. So and that's I think it's unfortunate, because many decisions are made already that someone doesn't even get a chance to talk to a recruiter. Someone doesn't even get a chance to go further down the hiring process, and you're kind of filtered out already, just by someone looking at a CV. Or even worse, if like an ATS is just filtering out CVs now, just searching for some keywords.
Yeah.
I guess that can happen, and that can happen as well. But yeah, that's just to kind of summarize. That's kind of the main idea. There is a bias in the hiring process, and I think this bias shouldn't exist. And we should look at the people beyond CVs. We should try to understand them, and try to understand, is someone capable to do a job? That's a more important question, and not, is someone capable of writing a shiny CV? And that's something important.
Now, let's sort of get into this and look under the hood a bit. So I want to sort of come at it from the client end, so I can be, I guess, probably I can really relate to where your product is, right? And I guess where I want to sort of talk about first is there's a lot of competition in HR tech first. A lot of the stuff is older, it works, it's established, you don't want to move away with it. People might be unwilling to put their hiring into an AI. Right, let's just talk about that. And where I want to get is, as you mentioned, you want it to be focused on the client. So you also have to come up with, right, how are we going to make a product that does what we want it to do, but also what individual clients might take from it in terms of like bias, in terms of like time saving, right? There's a whole bunch of different benefits to it, but you have to really uncover what's important to each person to build something. So where did that all come from you? You say the focus should always be the client.
Yeah,
Talk to me.
Yeah, that's a great point, because in the end, if you see a problem, it doesn't mean that it's going to be adapted necessarily, or a solution that you build to solve a certain problem is going to be adapted. You really need to understand, like, the users at the end of the day. And something that you said right now is very important. There is some history already, right? There is a reason why people are using CV screening. They already have some systems in place, so people are solving the problem in a certain way already, and you need to find out, are they happy with it? Are they not happy with it? If I think that CV screening is very biased, well, that's my opinion, but I need to understand the opinion of recruiters mainly, or let's say also hiring managers to some extent, and this is where it's getting very very tricky. Because you really kind of need to go into such a detail And I thought I understand the HR market there and the hiring process, but if you really deep dive and you go into such detail, then you realize, okay, some things are actually people perceive things differently. Because yes, I think people agree, most of the people agree that CV screening is biased. Nevertheless, there are some people, as I said, some people don't see a problem with it. They just think that, okay, I look at a CV, I'm very experienced, I'm doing this for 10 years, so now I look at a CV and within a few seconds, I can make a decision. So I guess to some extent there is a Dunning-Kruger effect here. You just don't know what you don't know, so you think that you know it, but actually the expertise level is often fairly low. That's also the truth, and it's not no offense here. It's just that I can, for example, if I hire for data analysts in a certain industry and so on, I think I'm very good at it because I have seen things myself. But if I would need to hire for like all of a sudden machine learning engineer in another industry, that's going to be quite tough. But to understand those nuances, you kind of need to have a lot of experience there. So yeah, that's one point. Like, is the problem even perceived as a problem? That's a very important step.
Yeah.
And then of course, if you realize that some people are not seeing a problem there, then you kind of need to create a narrative. You need to talk about it with people. You need to convince them that there is actually a problem. And that's of course an important point. So this is why this connection to users and understanding what they really think is very important. And there's another layer to it. Also, people who understand that there is a problem, sometimes they're pretty much imprisoned in their own existing system. They just do things as they always did. So they really don't want to change things if it's working okay. So some people know there is a bias, but they also know that no one is really complaining. And then it's working okay. So you just move on and do it like you always did. And that's of course another point. Yeah. So you also need to understand the worries. So even if someone perceives this as a problem and is seeking for a solution there, you still need to understand all the worries there. And this is definitely something like AI might replace people. That's just a huge worry. That's just reality. If you talk to people, you often feel it. Yeah. So, and you also kind of need to understand kind of what's the context of the job of the pre-screening phase here. If you go for a solution, you kind of on a recruiter level, I would say you rather have 100 applicants and forward kind of as many applicants as possible to a hiring manager. This will make people look better rather than you having people that are already bouncing in the pre-screening phase. So there is often this worry of, if I use a skill assessment, people might be bouncing. If I talk to hiring managers, very often there is a different perception, because they say, hey, whether I have 100 people or 10 people, in the end, I need to hire one person and I want to have the right person. So they look more for quality. And often I see recruiters, they're watching out for rather quantity. So they focus a lot on, okay, how to improve the sourcing, how can I get more people there into the pipeline, because this increases the chance that some of them will be good, so the hiring manager will be more happy. But that just, I think that's a bit short-sighted, because in the end, you're not solving the problem, you're just kind of pushing away the screening effort more to the hiring manager, right? So but I mean, those are just examples, and some companies are doing a great job here, and some companies are doing an awful job here, and that's kind of my job to understand this market then, yeah, on such a detailed level, and really talking to users, and understanding their worries. What do they expect from a solution, and do they even see a problem in the same way as I see?
Can I ask you, Alex, have you ever done any research while you're doing understanding your end clients, like what the cost is of a bad hire or a mismatch?
So, I mean, many things are kind of out there. So there are a lot of studies, of course, which we also use and try to understand. But nevertheless, I think it's very important to also, as I said, like to talk to users, and especially in the beginning, for me, it's a big learning that I mean, in sales, there's often this kind of mindset of fake it till you make it, and you try to sell things. I have a different way. I'm really trying to understand the users here. So I'm really trying to understand, are my assumptions actually correct? So the costs are a bit higher. Yeah, there might be studies out there. I kind of know the numbers there. But for me, it's good to also talk directly to the users. Do they perceive it in the same way? What's their experience there? And that might be then a different picture than what you see in some studies. There's often a gap between reality and some studies. So yeah, I do kind of my own research there. So very often conversations are really like on the level, hey, look, I'm not selling you something. If I can help you, that's great. But first of all, I want to understand your struggle and whether I can help you there.
Yeah.
And trying to understand whether my own assumptions are correct, and trying to find like a common vision with people that I'm talking to, and that's I think a very important point.
Yeah, because it's something that I've started to talk to a lot of startups about, right? I can't do a skills assessment, but what I can do is I can coach people around behavioral based interviewing techniques. I can coach them around how you get them to understand and question them around their values, your business values. Because from my research, the average cost of a mishire is 2x their yearly salary. And that comes down to the cost of your development. That's like lost time. So lost time in that, the time you spend training, and then the time lost in actually delivering the software. So you hire someone for 60K, if they stick around and leave after 12 months and you're not happy with them, the cost to the business is over 100K.
I think you can, I mean, it depends on how you calculate it. I think there are even more effects to this, in a sense that if you have a bad hire or mishire in a company, then also this whole topic of culture, of culture management, or culture in a team, or team culture is getting also very important. Because if you see that there is someone who is not doing the job properly, this can have a bad impact on the entire team as well there. So if the entire team is getting less productive because there's a mishire, or imagine a situation, someone was hired and has a very high salary. I mean, even if it's not completely transparent, people will talk about it. So they will ask questions like, why is this person that is not delivering, is supposed to be a senior person, is now not delivering and having a higher salary than I do? That can have a bad impact on the entire team there. So you could even like kind of the secondary effects of mishires can be very strong as well. So this is why I think that this is a super, like one of the most important decisions in the end. And we see it in like in the market that we are right now. There's not enough, especially in the tech space. There's just not enough people. So I see many companies are being quite desperate, let's say, but it shouldn't translate into, okay, let me just hire someone. I think it's very important to focus on the quality there. Otherwise, you will get into this mishire problematic problems, and that can be extremely costly, as you just mentioned. Yeah.
What have you learned from all this time spent with your customers that you've actually impacted?
Yeah. So I do think that there is kind of two main use cases in my opinion, and I often, or like my biggest goal is in the beginning to really understand how can I help, and there is a use case where you say, okay, I have more than enough applicants. Let's say I'm in an environment where there's a high volume. Then the purpose of our software, or generally skill assessment, is getting more in the direction of, okay, how can I very quickly filter out the right people, or filter out the bad people, and focus on the right people. That's one use case. The other use case is more like, I don't have enough applicants, and then it becomes a luxury problem. In the end, if you don't have applicants to screen, there's often kind of like less of a need, of course, for skill assessment, or it's done differently. We see also that often hiring managers are getting involved if the applicant numbers are lower. So often kind of the hiring managers is directly involved from the tech department there. So that's just changing, and that's a very important piece to me, kind of to distinguish what's the context of these people. Are they expecting more people in the pipeline? Is that the big problem, or do they have a certain number of people in the pipeline already? And and their question is like, okay, what are the right people? I want to create an efficient and a fair process. What are the right people? So yeah, and as I said, another point is also this fake it till you make it. I've been through this phase of starting completely from scratch to first customers now, kind of 2 times, like in my career, and I just for me it's just very important. Like as an entrepreneur, I'm not a salesperson per se. I'm really a problem solver at the end of the day. And this is my biggest learning, that at the end of the day, like I don't want as an entrepreneur to be in a situation where I'm building something and then I'm trying to find a problem for the solution. That's just that's the wrong way. I want to build something that definitely solves a problem. So and I do think it's very important not to kind of write too many lines of code before you've really validated a problem and then validate a solution. So that's definitely the biggest learning now, kind of having been through this phase from zero to first customers twice. And yeah, in a startup, you will never have enough resources. So in a corporate world, you could always say, okay, well, we have enough resources. Let's give it a shot. Let's build this product and then see whether our existing customers are using it. But it's very different from building a startup, because first you have a customer base already, and then you can upsell. It's always easier than getting like into the market without any customer relationships. Yeah. And then, yeah, the other thing is that you simply have resources. So corporates don't care if there's 5 engineers sitting working on something and it turns out that it doesn't work. It might hurt them a little bit,
It's
but
R&D, right?
yeah, it's for a startup, this, like this can make it or break it. Like if you sit there with 5 engineers, you already need quite some investors to pay for that, because you don't have a customer base yet. There is no revenue then in a very, very early stage, or low revenue. So this is where if you're inefficient and you make the bad decisions, then don't validate the problem properly before you build something, that's getting very tough. But I mean, I knew it before already, kind of from the first experience, and also like, of course, there are also enough entrepreneurs talking about it. But I think it's very important to experience this yourself. You like, once you're an entrepreneur yourself, you will understand really kind of what that means. And I also have to say that, of course, to some extent, we also made mistakes and thought like some assumptions that we had are true, and then you kind of find out later down the road, oh, actually, we need to rethink this again. And that's getting very tough if you don't have so many resources.
So yeah, talk to me then about your first. What did your first POC look like?
Yeah, so what we are focusing on is really trying to understand what is this, let's say, the killer feature. What is it where people will have like a wow effect? So that also, because, and it's important, as I said, if you don't have customer relationships yet, you need to be very clear. You're going to go into cold approaches. No, you're going to cold call people. You're going to write them via LinkedIn, via email. You will go to events. You will talk to complete strangers. So if you can't show that you're building something that is impressive and has some sort of wow effect, that's getting very tough. So we really focused on this feature. And yeah, let me very quickly explain you how the product works. So as a recruiter, you can upload your job ad, and what we do is, and what we're very good at is, we are extracting the role automatically, the seniority, and then also the skills that are needed. And that goes way beyond keyword matching. So it's a very sophisticated system that helps me to kind of understand the entire context of a job. And then in the second step, we also pick the right questions and select the right questions so that you can assess people based on certain requirements there. Yeah, so we focused a lot on this feature, because that's something that was, to my knowledge, never done before in an automated way. And I had this experience in my previous companies there, and especially at LinkedIn, where like in some cases we're working closely with the HR team, and there is, like there is kind of a manual process there. So if you have tech people sitting around there and they have a database of questions, and then they prepare for interviews, and then they select some questions from an Excel sheet, let's say. That's a very manual process where I felt like, okay, this can be automated there. And yeah, it kind of starts with the job ad. So this whole thinking was, hey, actually the requirements, at least in theory, they should be very clear on the job ad, on a job description, and then we can actually translate it into a skill assessment in a fully automated way. And this is what we are focusing on. So we built this. We didn't care so much about ATS integration and so on. This is further down the line. In the very beginning, this is not what it is about. It's about getting feedback on this feature and trying to understand whose problem does it solve, and what's the exact problem that is solved with this kind of feature, and what's the capability that is linked to this feature that people are asking for or not asking for. Yeah, so this was the starting point, really kind of understanding, are we building something very unique and something of value.
Can I ask, was it a rough and ready model, or like did you have this down on, like, I don't know, decision trees with pen and paper, or did you have a fully functioning automation model for your MVP?
Yeah, well, it was fully functional, so it definitely took some time. It definitely took some time to build it. I think here it's very important that so in the end, we started with data roles, and this niche allowed us to kind of to be quick with development of the software. If we would have gone into the market and said, okay, we will build this for pretty much all the roles out there, that's not gonna happen so quickly. Yeah, so it was about testing it very quickly, but also, yeah, like, I mean, of course, you can technically also just have some sort of mock-up there, but I don't think that you have the same level of discussions. And to be honest, also, I think that in the past, and that probably has changed in the last decade or so, we all got used to, to a very nice user interface. We all use Netflix, Spotify, and so on. And that changed the game. Now people are also in a B2B environment. They are expecting this kind of user experience already. So this old thinking of, okay, let me just kind of draft something, and then you can talk about it with people, but it will be way more hypothetical. So if the purpose is really to kind of validate the idea and talk about the problem, that's fine to some extent, but you will not get, let's say, a very honest opinion. You will not get into this discussion. Okay, so but are you also willing to pay for it? What's the value that you see in it? Because it will be too much of a prototype. Yeah. So, and I think this is also something that you learn when you're an entrepreneur. So what's the right level of effort that you put into the first proof of concept or MVP? Yeah, what is needed in order to have proper conversations with clients, because also, yeah, it's getting much easier to build startups. So there are generally more startups out there. The HR tech space is also quite crowded. So you also know that you're competing. You're not the only one who wants to talk to tech recruiters. So you're competing with others. So the better your product kind of will look like, the first version, the better it is also in terms of getting good conversations with customers.
Good. Nice. Cool how that's worked out. So I guess sort of like the key takeaways here that you're really lining up here are don't overspend on R&D. Spend a lot of time with your client to really understand what they're really looking for and how you can actually serve their problems.
I think, yeah, that's spot on. I guess it always depends a bit also on what kind of startup are you building. There are for sure deep tech startups which are very research heavy products that you need to develop. You need to develop it first for several years and until you can even prove that it's working before you kind of get into the market there. So, but I'm really talking kind of about SaaS solutions. And that's then different. You kind of need to have an entry in the market, and this is why you need to be so close to the customers there. Having a wider vision is a different topic, and I think a product will always evolve in a sense. So what you start with is not gonna be the actual product that you will be selling, and even further down the line, you will most probably add new features that you in the beginning never thought of. Yeah. So, but that's kind of a journey, and I think like it's very important, as you just said and summarized, that just being very close to the customer, making sure that what you're building has real value to them, and then you take it from there. The rest will fall into place eventually.
Nice. Ready for the final 3 quickfire questions, Alex?
Yes.
Good. Start off nice and easy. Content that you would recommend to other listeners, whether it be a book or a podcast.
Like I read a lot of books in the past, more than right now. A couple of things that I have in mind right now, which I felt very useful, also especially in this context that we are talking about, let's say from scratch to first customers, that's April Dunford, like the book on positioning. I would need to, obviously awesome. I think that's a recent book that I read, and I think everyone should read it. I really like it. It's about kind of understanding. And a lot about the things that we were just talking, like really understanding who am I? How is my position different from other companies, so that it will resonate with the people that you're talking to. And that's a very nice book. For sure, I have a lot of other books there. It depends a bit on kind of what you want to achieve there. But I think in this phase, 4 Steps to Epiphany, this kind of lean startup, kind of this classic books, they're very important, and that's something that I recommend. Having said that, so that I was listening to your also stuff in the past a lot, and now also going to continue. So that's very nice. I do have like there's a German podcast which is so for the German listeners, Data and Business, which I like a lot as well. And then there is a podcast from Reid Hoffman, which I like to listen to, which is more broader, let's say, and mostly has some sort of business like or connection to some business topics there, but it's generally a broad podcast that I like a lot and learn a lot from. That's pretty much it. And then the rest is really, I feel that the more busy I am in everyday life, the more important it also is becoming for me to be at events and to talk to real people. So there are for sure some very nice events and conferences. It might be HR tech related, so it could be Unleash, for example, and then also more technical related, so SaaS conferences or AI conferences. So that's kind of roughly the resources that I'm spending time with.
Cool. What are your 3 non-negotiable behaviors that you set for yourself?
So I do think it's, I mean, in the context of entrepreneurship, I do think it's pretty much all around kind of this concept of delayed gratitude. You need to be willing to go through hell, as I said in the beginning. Like, it's almost always things take longer than you think they take. There are way more problems than you think there are. So you should have this mindset of, hey, it's fine. Like I will see the benefits from it in the future, and now it's fine to kind of go through this lows. So that's definitely one very important piece. I also think that it's extremely important to have some sort of, let's say, hobbies, or something that is a good, like, is balancing you out, so that you don't just work and just focus on work too much. So like, keep doing sports is just very important, and having friends around. So that's definitely something very important to me as well. So those are 2 things. And then a third thing is just in the end that the team works. Like, you have a founding team, and that's really the fundament. Like, this is where you can make it or break it. You're going to be successful with a great team. You're definitely not going to be successful with a bad team. And I think this is the starting point. And if you build something that is, let's say, technical, and you really build software, you will not going to be able to do this yourself. So it's like this piece of like having a like 100% trust to your co-founders, and making sure that you can work blindly together, and you have a very good like this distinction of responsibilities there, and you just know who's in charge of what, and it's just like very efficient. And I think this is another important piece. Like team is it's about the team at the end of the day.
Cool. Nice. And final question for you, Alex. If you could go back and change something and do it differently, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, and I have a lot of thoughts on this one. I do think it's very important to kind of understand what you're building, and then make a decision on where you're building it, and kind of really choosing a specific market. So I'm not saying Germany is a bad country to be a founder. I think there are many industries that are great for this. I mean, let's put a bit the bureaucratic stuff aside. I'm sure that this is definitely better in many other countries. But in terms of HR tech, I have realized that I would say the entire DACH area compared to, let's say, UK or US is quite behind. So the way how they use software, they're seen way more as cost centers. The budgets for software is much lower. So if you start in that environment, that's going to be much harder. So this is something that I learned in the end. But of course, it's very easy to say now looking back. But if you're a first-time entrepreneur, my thought back then was, hey, you know what? The German market is a big market. I have my network there. It's my native language, so it will be also easier to get through the bureaucratic stuff there when you found a company. But now looking back, I would have probably chosen like another market focus from the very beginning, and not focus too much on the DACH area, but rather on UK and US. And my thinking. Ireland as well. Yeah, I'm sorry. And there are other, like also Benelux, Nordics. What I want to say is like there is a certain mindset in some countries, and if it's an innovative mindset and people love to test things out, there's more budget for that. And wasn't my goal to exclude some countries there. There are definitely also some countries that fit into the same bucket. But of course, UK, US are the biggest. But I would really Ireland. It's also part of it, and then Benelux, Nordics, and the Baltic countries. I think they're very open to innovation. And the core why I'm saying it doesn't mean that you can build a successful startup also in other regions, but the mechanics are going to be very different. If you build something that is very innovative, then it's better to be in a country that is valuing innovation. In a market like Germany, I usually see that successful startups, they're usually kind of building something that already exists, globally speaking, but then you just adapt it to the German market. So that's a very different mindset. And I think if you look back, we already had this. There is this rocket internet discussion that in Germany there always is. So in a sense, a big part of the German entrepreneurship is based on and the rocket internet was one of the biggest back then, and they kind of. And they did a great job, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's just very different. If you look at other markets, you see what is working in other markets, and then you're very good in operations, and then you can just kind of adapt it to your own market. But that's a very different mindset. So if you're more of a technical entrepreneur, you have this engineering background, and you're like, hey, I'm building something really new, then you should be aware that there are markets that are more open to real innovation. As opposed to a more conservative market like Germany. I think this is definitely something that looking back, I learned a lot about it, and I would be more clear on what I want to achieve. Do I want to have a successful market entry? Then you can just pretty much take some ideas and some startup ideas that already exist in the world and just adapt it, let's say, to a German market. Very simplifying, but that's kind of the main point. Or you go for something very innovative and you build some some very interesting stuff that it hasn't been built before, then you're better off in more innovative markets with a better, more open mindset.
Nice. Really, really solid answer there, Alex. Really solid answers for the quick fire round. But yeah, look, that does us for time. Everyone listening, this is the Leadership Lab podcast with Deep Rec, and today's guest was Alex, co-founder at Skillfill. Alex, great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Anthony, and I hope to talk to you soon again.
That concludes another enlightening episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and informative, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the Leadership Labs. Until next time.